So it's been 2 years since I did this, and it's kind of crazy how it came to be. Like, I I was just at work, and I just kind of wanted to animate something because, like, for the longest time, like, I just wanted to animate. Like, I had so many ideas. I have a book literally written like with different notes and things like that I could be doing, like whether it be gaming or whatever I was interested in. At the time, I was watching a lot of TYT, and then I found out about Secular Talk, and I kind of, over the years, I kind of preferred Kyle's method of, like, discussing politics, and it just, I kind of gravitated more. Like, even now, like, I kind of don't watch as much TYT anymore. I watch mostly him, and then I'll get my news from like other sources and everything. But I don't know, like, I was just thinking to myself, like, I watch these every day, and I follow Joe Rogan like a lot of people do, and I noticed Joe Rogan has like a cartoon series that somebody, like, it's a fan, I assume, makes it, and like all these other big names that have a cartoon, and Kyle never really, he had never, I've seen some fan art, actually not too much fan art, but I've seen, like, the shirts he does and everything, but I haven't seen like a cartoon series or like anything revolving around it. I think I even like searched it in the YouTube search engine. I'm like, Secular Talk, fan art, cartoon. Like, I didn't really see anything. So I'm like, why don't I do this? I watch this every day. Like, I literally don't miss an episode. I have material. Like, he does good, decent impressions and talks about like very interesting things, and gives his opinion on it. Like, it's like a gold mine of content. Like, literally, I have let me see what the number is, 418 different segments that I thought at the time of watching was like, oh, this could be for a good episode. And I had this model you guys see here. It's my model. It's my dude. It's, I'll go in and change it based on like the person that I'm talking about. So I guess at the time, like, I looking back at this, like, I finished the Corn model, and I think Corn looks pretty good. I think it looks like Corn. This one, it looks like Kyle, but like Kyle doesn't really have any distinctive features really. It's just like spiky hair. He's a white dude. He's got a little stubble, he wears a suit, kind of thing. So I made a quick model, and I'm happy with this. Like, I was kind of happy with the time. So I tweeted it to him because the only reason I'm on Twitter was to send fan art for other creators that I found, interesting. I'm like, hey, actually, I would use this model and make them, and I would send them like, hey, this is you. I made this for you. This is cool. And like, most of them like would reply back, oh, that's awesome. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. Not expecting anything, but I'm just like, hey, I want to share this because I worked hard on it, and I enjoy what you do, and like, give a little shout out, give a little something back for you. And yeah, I just sent it to him. I'm like, Secular Talk, the cartoon series, love your shit. That's all I said. Not really expecting much, because I feel like when I'm not really a person to do something and expect anything back, I try not to. But he retweeted it. He's like, yo, this is awesome. And then people in the comments were like, yo, make this into a cartoon. Make this in the cartoon. I'm like, I'm way ahead of you. I'm working on it. And that was kind of cool. That was really cool. I'm like, the most satisfying thing for like a designer, a creative, an artist, whatever, is that people are excited to see what you do next. That's why I appreciate you guys a lot, because a lot of you guys are like, when's the next one? Are you guys even here? Like we have 5 people here. Like, some people might say like, that's not that many people, but to me, it's like 5 people in the world. Like, we have Murdoch from goddamn Finland, like, just chilling with us and just watching my shit, like, coming here every time I do this. Like, it's incredible. So I started working on it, and then obviously the first episode had to do with weed, because at the time he was constantly talking about how he gets paranoid with weed. So I'm like, let me do like let me show that. And then how do I show that? I'm like, at the time I think it was 2 years ago. So 2 years ago, so it's like around 2017. So this was like after the election, I believe. Yeah, I believe so. And Bernie was a big figure in in the world at the time, and so was Trump. So, and then this was like when after Trump was saying all these nutty things, and then Bernie was saying his own stuff, and I'm like, why don't I have him smoke weed and get like mega paranoid and just start hearing voices in his head? Like that's what kind of something that happens when you get paranoid. You hear voices in your head, or you're just like, and yeah. So I did that duality. I did the Trump being the paranoid side of him, and then Bernie being the side of him that like enjoys being high, pretty much, which is it just relaxes you and all that stuff. It makes you hungry, and let me just do that. And so this was my first real long formed, well thought out, storyboarded, elements created animation that I've ever done. So I was happy with this. Like looking back at this, like it's very simple. It's very very static. He's just kind of sitting in one place. He's shaking his arms if he's like discussing something, and obviously the mouth movements, the fucking lip syncing. That was something that I, when I first did this, I'm like, oh my god, this is gonna take forever. Then over time, like it just kind of got easier and easier. And it's easy, but it's just very, very goddamn tedious, as most of you guys already know. So like looking back, I could move his head a little bit more. I could make him do a little more stuff, because he's just kind of sits there and he smokes a joint, and he falls because he's hearing stupid shit, or he's hearing something he likes. So I could do this better, and more stuff could happen. But at the time and where I was, like I'm happy with it. I feel like like this scene is kind of, he did that for too long. Like I just like critique in my head. I'm like, oh my god, he did this this little thing for way too long. I feel like he could have done more. But yeah, and I also put audio into it. Like I had to cut the audio, edit the audio, so I was like, and sync it with like what was happening. So I'm pretty proud of this. Like I think it's cringy, because it's your first thing, like your first piece of artwork, your first piece of whatever that you hope to improve with is gonna be cringy. Like everyone's first YouTube video is cringe. Like you're not gonna speak perfectly, you're not gonna whatever. But yeah, so I ended up sending this to him, and he's like, "Yo, this is fucking awesome." I'm like, "Yeah, like I'm glad you like it. That's awesome." And then like I got like a lot of people following me from this, like, and they're like, "Oh, what's the next one? What's the next one? What's the next one?" So that positive reinforcement like really like pushed me, like, do this more, man. Do this more. And I didn't really think about this long term. I guess I kind of did, because it's like a series. And I guess why I call it the anime series, because like I grew up on like shows called like X-Men the anime series, Spider-Man the anime series, or whatever. So why not just do like an animated series? And it's a series for a reason. Like there's continuity a little bit. There's some cameos in like later ones, and from early ones, but I have a long-term plan with this one. If if I keep it up, and like my house doesn't burn down, like I lose my computer or something, like I plan on continuing this. This is kind of the benefit I had from like watching him so much. I'm like, or I guess why people like him so much. It's like he just relates to people because he's like authentic. Like he'll just say like, I love oatmeal raisin cookies, goddammit. So I'm like, he said this like at least multiple times. So I'm like, okay, he probably really likes them. So like, what would be a snack that he reaches for? It has to be oatmeal raisin cookies then. So I guess I think about it like that in depth with these kind of things. Like the little I like the little details where I literally have audio of him and I have to create a story. Like that's all I have. I have a story. I'm not gonna go to him and be like, yo, can you say this line? Can you say this word? No, I have to work with what I have. So that's kind of how I tackled it. And yeah, I obviously, I had to search for all the Trump and Bernie audio. Like that took a while, but it all worked out, and I'm really happy with it. And I think there's a lot of funny moments for fans, like fans who are like me, who like watch him all the time. Like you'll get the little references. You'll get the fact that like, yeah, he's paranoid, he's flipping out, but like he gets up at the fact of hearing Trump talk about bombing civilians, because that was like, one of Trump's biggest, or I guess non-controversial statement that he made that the media just kind of like, oh, whatever. But like it affected him. So I'm like, okay, he hears it, like he's gonna snap out of it. You know what I mean? So that was my thinking with it. That's kind of like how I thought about it. Like what would get him out of it? Like, and that just made more sense to me. So, so that's pretty much this episode. It's my first attempt, and I think it started off something pretty cool. Let's talk about this one, because this one was very much requested. Well, the first thing I would hear people say is like, when's the Ted Cruz one? I'm like, that's the one I gotta do. I gotta do Ted Cruz. And then Seltzer. People obviously talk about the Seltzer, but I got to that eventually. We'll go to that. But this one I turned around in like a month, I believe, of the last one premiering. The first one was June 30th, 2016. Wow, it's gonna be 3 years. It's not 2. It's gonna be 3. Holy crap! End of this month. Wow. So, and I believe the Ted Cruz one was September. So like 3 months roughly. I think I don't think I worked on this right after. I think I was planning it, and the planning stage is always the hardest. Because I want it to be good. I want it to be funny. I want it to be interesting. I want it to be well researched. And I think I worked on this all of August, and it took me like roughly a month of just nonstop going at it. And I think it's a little better than the first one, animation wise. It's still very simple and very static, because as he's talking, he just kind of sits there. And I wish I made like his head move a little bit, and his arms flail a little bit, because there's a lot of lip sync and there's a lot of exposition here. But I still think it like builds up to something, instead of like being like a recreation of a segment. Things happen. I'm like, the thought process with these were always, what if he's doing his segments? What if he's talking about what he's talking about in real life? And then obviously I'll have the freedom of animation to be like, what if Ted Cruz is flailing right next to him? Like, what would he do? What would Ted Cruz do? So that's kind of how I tackled this one. Like, you're talking shit about Ted Cruz in his flailing campaign. What if he's actually flailing? What if what if his character is just a flail? So I kind of went with that, and obviously the sound effects, the Ted Cruz, the me's, like, I remember doing the audio for this episode, and I had a separate file for just the Ted Cruz audio, and it was like a minute of just different impressions of the me, and it was just like the funniest thing ever. Like, I would just replay it. And like, eventually I got it stuck in my head. I'm like, you smirk at it, but it's not as funny anymore, because you just hear the same thing over and over and over again. So that I think was a good development of his character, and I have plans for Ted Cruz, the model or the character, for him to evolve and change as time goes. But we'll get there. We'll get there. And obviously we have Carly Fiorina, here kind of like as her running mate, and being the creep that she is. So within the segment, obviously she was talking about or there was actually in the segment he posted a video about her like very creepily like singing to children, and the audio is obviously in this episode. But I'm like, what if she was also part of it, because that's very creepy, you know. And it just all kind of like fell together. It's like, what if Ted Cruz is flailing in the office? What if Ted Cruz attacks him for just for making fun of him? And then what if Carly Fiorina's comes up, does that singing behind the blowjob, what do you call it? You call it like the blowjob sauna screens or whatever. I assume they're transparent. I made them transparent, so that is what it is. And she starts singing, and the flower is obvious reference to the segment itself. Like, I always recommend people to watch the segments before the cartoons. Obviously I can't force people to do that, but like, if you want to get the jokes, if you want to get the in jokes, if you want to know where I'm coming from, like, you watch the segment that I post or that I'm referring to beforehand, so you get it. So obviously, like, he talks about, like, a Twitter comment said something like, "Oh, every plant in my house just died from her singing." So what if I had a plant? At one point I wanted a plant just like sitting here somewhere, but like it didn't really fit, because obviously they're fighting and they're wrestling, but like I don't know where a plant would fit. It's a studio. So what if Carly's just like holding a flower for whatever reason? I don't know what the reason would be. And she's just singing, and then it just dies like after you start singing. Like, there's a lot of like dead silence in this episode. A lot of people in the comments were actually saying, like, there's a lot of dead air. Try to fix it up. I'm like, and I took that criticism to heart. I'm like, not to heart, to like as like constructive. Or I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And I guess I wasn't seeing it because I looked at this for months and weeks. And you don't really pick up on that stuff because you made it. It's like pretty much like if you develop an application for like a phone or whatever, and then you, the designer or developer, are asked to test it. I'm like, you wouldn't really catch on other things that people would see because you've developed it. You made it. Yeah, so this next scene took forever. Yeah, this scene right here took forever. So he's basically throwing him against the sauna. Apparently it's glass, because he's just like annoying him. He's driving him crazy. Yeah, this scene. So I had to do two separate things. I had to do. Here is the background for the screen, the sauna screen or whatever you want to call it. It's one image, but to make it like shatter like that, I had to like create another image, which was basically this. I had to create this image. And then just like have little pieces. Wait, where is it? Hold on. Yeah, so here's the same image. Then bam, new image. And then all these little pieces, all these little pieces of the glass. In the form of like that circle or that Mark he's making on the glass door. All the glasses just shattered, going different. So these are individual elements. So like every little piece of glass I have to animate itself. So like I have to like do this one piece. Where is it going? It's going out there. This other piece. It was like 20 pieces or something I did. I'm crazy. I didn't need to do that, but I wanted it to look authentic. Because you hardly see it. Yeah, like you hardly see the glasses, or the glass, because he's like kind of in the way. But I think for effect, the effect is still pretty good. But it took a long time. It took a while. It took longer than I thought too. And I guess that's also part of like me still learning it and everything. He gives him the finger. I don't know if a lot of people call it that because it looks like a lump on his finger. But yeah. And obviously he breaks his little thing. And if you notice in further episodes going down, this is like taped together. His mic he has to tape up his mic because of this. So it's just little things like that that I wanted to keep doing with that. And did people notice it? Probably not, but I did, and I think it's really good. I wish I had like a sound effect for him hitting him, but I just had the me. And then Carly Fiorina, obviously, like, she gets away, but I want to use her for something else, but she's kind of irrelevant at this point, unless she runs for president again, which I doubt. But she could be an ally to the Ted Cruz cause. So we'll see. She's been established in one way or another. Actually, I was going to establish her as a witch. I was going to make her have green skin, have a hat, but I don't think it would have been that. I feel like it would have been noticeable because, like, you know her voice through the screen door. But I don't know. I like character arc, so I would make her. I guess, lean into that witchness, that Wizard of Oz witchness that I was thinking about. So who knows? There's plenty of potential. And then this last shot of Ted Cruz was pretty great. I had an extra audio clip, and I'm like, yeah, I need to use this clip, and like, I guess I'll use the clip at the end. Like, it just works out. It just all worked out. Like, everything I had, like, worked out. Like, that's why I kind of like the fact that I'm just using the audio from the episode or from the segment, so I have a 10-minute focus. I have 10 minutes of audio. What am I gonna do with it in the best way possible? And I think I did pretty good with this one. I actually like this episode better than the first. I was actually pretty proud of it too. Yeah, it took me like a month or so to do. It was actually really fast turnout because I released the first one in June, this one in September. But this is pretty simple. So I thought I could have done it faster actually, but it turned out to be a little more involved. This whole scene with him, like wrestling with him, took a little bit because it has to be timed. It has to be like, I have to match Kyle's reaction to what Ted Cruz is doing to him. You know, he's lifting him up. Like, I'm like, how is it gonna work? He's just holding him back, and he gets back on him, like jumping on his neck for whatever reason. And then, like, I'm like, how is this gonna work? How's this gonna work? So yeah, I think it came out pretty well. So yeah, that's the Ted Cruz episode. So, like I've said, this is probably my favorite one. I had this idea around the election. Obviously, these were the two candidates. Given that the previous one just had, like, this, it all kind of worked out really weirdly. Like, I didn't expect, when I did the Ted Cruz one, and he had a giant hole in his studio, I didn't know that he would be getting a new studio. And when I found that out, and this, I think it was around this episode that he was announcing that he was getting a new studio. So I'm like, okay, I need to destroy the old studio ASAP. And then it just worked out so well. Like, it's kind of crazy when I thought about it. It's the universe was happening as I was doing this, like, perfectly. It was like weird timing. But anyway, so again, you see, like, the tape on his little mic, because, you know, Ted Cruz ruined that. And then you have the background. So what would Kyle realistically do to cover that up? He'd put posters of Bernie out of it, of course. But yeah, this one I knew was going to be a big undertaking. I had been, like, kicking down the road for, like, almost a year, I think. Let me see. When did this one come out? This one came out November 29th, 2017. So obviously it was a year or so after the election. I wanted it to come out before the election. I wanted it to come out before, like, kind of colliding with the election. But that was just not going to happen. Like, I kept changing this. I kept making it bigger and better. And I wanted to take my time with it. Yeah, it took about a year a year of me kicking it down the road and, like, dealing with life stuff and all that stuff. Yeah, so he had a segment of him talking, like, how does Hillary win? Or what does Hillary need to do to win? And what does Donald need to do to win? So I'm like, what if he's talking to their cartoon selves, you know, and then their personalities come out to shine. And I thought that would be a great thing, but I knew it was gonna. Oh man, this is gonna take a long time because I wanted it to be that involved. This is like my crowning achievement, I think, because I did a lot of research for this one. And then like what would like Hillary obviously lost at this point, so I had a lot of frame of reference. I had a year into the Trump presidency, and just like over time, like Hillary would just not take any blame. She would not take any blame for herself. And toward the end of the campaign, like she would just not take anybody's advice. She would like have LeBron James on, and she would start dabbing with LeBron James. I'm like, she's not really listening, you know? She's not really listening to like why she lost or like toward the end of the campaign. And I wanted to highlight that. I wanted to highlight the fact that she wasn't listening. I wanted to highlight the fact that she was corrupt as shit. And it was all about money. And for some reason, I don't know why I came up with the UV money bag, but it was just such a ridiculous thing that like as he's talking, what would Hillary be doing? She'd be either given money, or I was like thinking like just go nuts. Like what if she's given an IV of money? I think it's IV or UV? IV, I think. It's just so ridiculous. And she's just like not listening because she's like getting high off the money, because she's just like all about money. She's very corrupt. And then there at the end, like you see a little band-aid. I thought that was a nice touch because, you know, she just got a needle stuck in her hand. Like she has to have something to protect that. And they just keep talking. And then there was something obviously that needed to be highlighted, and that's the fact that she constantly talked about breaking down the barriers. And I thought like, what if like, you know, she's also like starts daydreaming, like she's just like literally dreaming about breaking down a barrier. And I'm like, how would Hillary break down a barrier in her own dreams? She would just throw money at it, because Hillary Clinton is well off. Like she's fine. She doesn't need to worry about money. The explosion effect, I had to literally do like a little graphic of like, you know, from start to end. So I googled a lot of like explosions, like animated explosions, like how do they look and what would they sound like and all that stuff. So I had to do frame by frame the impact, the explosion, and what would happen afterwards. Like very smoky, die down and everything, and just like keep using that over and over and over again for the money. So I was kind of happy. That was the first time I actually did that for like a looped reused thing, like a little thing like for a money explosion. So I kind of enjoyed doing this. You know, the bubbles obviously bouncing around because it's a bubble. Like I don't want to just be stagnant. I wanted to like have some movement. She's like talking about breaking down barriers, and that was, and then she finally breaks it. She finally breaks the barrier. It's not that highlighted, but you know, you kind of get it. Like she's like all happy about it. And then in real life, it's like she's like imagining actually throwing those barriers, like throwing that money and breaking down those barriers. And here's another obvious one. So she's signing contracts, and I have like there's actual words here. It's like, you know, you scratch our back, we scratch yours, etc., etc. You have no say of your own. You are our puppet. We control you. You will do what we say when we say it. You will not do the bidding of the people. And she's just basically signing that. So a lot of reused animations here, but it makes sense in the context of like what I'm trying to portray. I'm trying to portray that she's not paying attention, and that she's just she just wants you know, move up on move up for Hillary. So I had to reuse this, but it's something that bothers me about this. It's very nitpicky, but I wish I had organized this money, because if you're handing money to someone, you're not handing it to someone like this. Like I think about this kind of stuff after watching it. It's just like a minor thing, but you know, She signs these contracts. She gets the money. Very, very Hillary. And then, like, you know, he tells her not to take corporate money anymore. And she freaks out because obviously it's been made very clear that she's all about money. So she passes out, and I forget like where I thought of this idea that like, or I had to think of like, how would you wake her up? Like, what would wake her up? I think I might have seen like a show or something where like you know, you're waving something in front of their face, like making sure they, I think it must have been like a SpongeBob episode or something where like Mr. Krabs like passes out, and then SpongeBob like breaks an emergency glass, and he's like gets the money, and it's like a $20 bill, and he waves in front of Mr. Krabs, and he wakes up. I think I got the idea from that. Yeah. So then she wakes up, and she's just like, there's just like no self-reflection. There's just like, you know, stronger together, you know, all that stuff that she says. And then obviously you have the transition to Trump. So I had to move this dude out the way. And I didn't want to use the same model. I could have used the same model for the Trump security guard, but I kind of wanted to give it a little more personality. So like, how would I get Hillary out of here? And this was around, or this wasn't around, this was past it, but what happened at the end of the election? Like, that Hollywood Access tape came out. And he kind of introduced himself with those Tic Tacs. So I'm like, what do the Tic Tacs represent? Well, according to Trump, it means like if he takes a Tic Tac, that means he's about to go in. So I thought that was something cool to include with the character, because it reflects in real life, unfortunately. So he chooses a Tic Tac, and she covers her private parts, and she just recites the same shit. And she's like, yeah, stronger together. Yeah, vote for me, please. That's it. That's all she got. So I thought that was a good breakdown of the Hillary character. She's very corrupt, and I kind of wanted to highlight that. You'll notice that Hillary wasn't listening, but Trump was listening, and that's why Trump won, because he was listening to, you know, advice and all that stuff. Yeah. So we have the new security guard. Trump's getting advice. I did the hands thing. I wasn't gonna do the hands thing originally. I was just gonna have him like sit there, but I'm like, every time Trump sits down, he just sits down like this, just every time. So I had to do a new hand graphic for this specific one, because it's just too perfect. Like, I had to do it. I had to do the extra mile. This is Kyle calling Trump stupid, essentially. Every time he gets criticized, like, he tweets. So I'm just like, let me get him to grab his phone, like, as he's giving him advice, and he's just like, you know, he's not listening here, but he's like, he's so pissed off that someone would criticize him, someone would dare criticize him. So I kind of wanted to show that off, and you know, he would tweet, and obviously you can mention the person on Twitter. So Kyle's phone goes off, and sees what he says about him, and this took some. I wanted to make this perfect. So, from different Colin Corrins, and obviously from watching his content, like, the dude likes a big bahunk on the woman, badunkadunk, and I'm like, who has the best badunkadunk in the business? That would be J-Lo, and if you think otherwise, you're wrong. You're wrong. The woman is like 50 and still has a nice badunkadunk. And obviously we have the tweet that he said, and basically it's a fake news show on YouTube. You know, it's just very incoherent, like four-year-old like insults that Trump did. And Trump has said this to multiple people. Never watch. It's overrated, bad, sad, all that crap. It was kind of simple to do like an insult, because that's how basically what Trump does. He's just bad, sad, great, sad. These last few points, he actually gives him good advice. He constantly tells him to, and I'm surprised Trump never did this, or he never released more hats, because I feel like people would buy this hat. And I'm very surprised that he never made this hat, this Crooked Hillary hat. Crooked Hillary, believe me. I thought it would be a good hat for him to sell with the Make America Great Again and all that. You know, Kyle tells him constantly, say Crooked Hillary. What's the best way to get that message out? On a hat. So I thought that was a cool idea. And then we have a Kyle impression of Trump. And then he gives him this last piece of advice of copying Bernie Sanders. And then, like, in the actual segment, he kind of says, like, he's like, oh, heads would explode. And I'm like, would they? What if they actually did? So, you know, he gives him advice, and I thought it was perfect because we had the security guard here. I'm like, oh, it just worked out perfectly because I was gonna have a security guard there, and I forget my thought process on it. I think I gave them the security guard for this one moment, and this was kind of fun to do. Like, it's just like his head is just pumped full of air, just like expanding, and it just explodes, and you have a thud. And then this took a little bit. I'm like, okay, so the head explodes. So now what? Like, how do they get back at talking about like these serious issues after someone's head just exploded in front of them? This was actually like one point in the episode where I was kind of stuck. I'm like, oh, what do they do now? How did they go back to what they were talking about? And I eventually just landed on like Trump would be like, just proceed. Kyle would be like, okay, now I need to just brush myself off and all that stuff. And then what would Trump do after he hears copy Bernie Sanders? He would follow him on Twitter. I thought that was a cool moment where I actually had to make a Bernie model. I have a fully completed Bernie model, front and side views as well. And I thought it was pretty good. I think it's a good Bernie. I think I can make it look a little older, but I think it's pretty good. The hair is disheveled, and I think it works pretty well. So I had to actually go on the Bernie Twitter, make sure it looks like the Twitter page, and then, you know, it'd be like a slow, like, I'm gonna follow this dude because this dude's telling me to follow him, and if I do this, I'll win. And then, like Kyle fortunately mentioned, you know, reflects on, like, I'm giving him amazing advice, and if he listens, like, he might win. And he did end up winning. So, you know, Trump ends up giving him a hat. Just says peace out. And then what happens? Trump ends up winning. And this, again, went back to the fact that, like, you know, we have a new studio. And the next episode I wanted to, well, obviously this was a year after the election. So I wanted to get away from the old studio. It kind of worked out too because this didn't give me enough space to really work with. It's just kind of like, you know, the characters here, and then like you have this little space here, and like, you know, I wanted more room to play with. And I saw a new studio. I'm like, that would look great because he has like 2 TVs. He's got like more open space, and I think that would be great for like more episodes. So I wanted to get away from this, and I'm like, okay, perfect. This is an election episode. What would Kyle do to the old studio? He would think like, yeah, this is bad memories, and also to illustrate the fact that Bernie would have won. What is the best way to show that or illustrate that? He would throw gas on the studio in the shape of Bernie would have won. I used a live action clip of CNN projecting it because I didn't want to animate it, or I didn't want to. I guess at this point I'm just like, I need to wrap this up. So I'm like, okay, what's the best way to do it? So we got a video of just CNN projecting that he will win, and then you hear the news, and like obviously his hair is all messed up. He hasn't been getting much sleep because that was a long day for everybody. You know, he just doesn't want to hear it. He's just like, I'm out. He takes the mic, and then Bernie would have won. So this again was another thing that helped me with the Hillary money explosion. You know, doing the fire, making sure all the fire is, you know, moving organically and moving pretty well. I'm pretty happy with it. You know, obviously Bernie would have won. I think that's a good note to end the old studio. It highlights it's like an end of an era kind of thing. And I might go back to the old studio. I have ideas where I could go back to the old studio. This was a very, very heavily planned episode. I remember there would be weekends where I would get home on Friday and I would literally not do anything that entire weekend. Like the entire week, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I wouldn't do anything. I would literally be working on this all day. From Friday night to like to late Friday night, wake up, jump into this. I remember I have like memories of just working on this, working on the Hillary one, on the Hillary section most notably, and then the Trump section. Like I just remember, I remember where I was at. I was here obviously, but I'm like working on this all day, just constantly pumping it out, trying to go. And this is before I was live streaming. I would have loved to like live stream and talk about this as I went with you guys, but I'm glad I'm doing this now because I can kind of have an audience and talk to you guys as I do it. But yeah, there were multiple weekends I would do that. I would like just not do anything, not go out, like, and just work on this. Like I was excited to make it, and that's why it came out so well, because I want to make this good, because this is a milestone in American history right now. Trump is our president, so yeah, I wanted to take my time with it. You have to understand, working with different characters is very difficult, because Kyle wasn't that difficult. Like, you know, I had the audio would be placed for the lip syncing, so, but the characters would have to react to what's happening. So as he's doing this, I had to make sure Trump would align perfectly with the end of like statements, and then like, you know, he would react, or he would give him a hat or something. But I'm like working with 3 characters on screen. I'm like, damn, this is difficult, but it's like pushing me. I like it. So, because I'm usually used to like Kyle and like one other person, or Kyle himself. So this was the 3rd one. So I always try to go bigger and better in each episode. I think that's the best way to do it. But I think this was definitely pushing me. Like, the script had to be tighter. The characters had to, you know, look the part, and they had to interact with each other. You know, given that the 3rd character is a security guard, so it was a little bit easier to swallow. But like, you know, when the security guard's handing Hillary like a contract to sign, or doing that, or, you know, putting a band-aid on her, I had to make sure it's all timed well. So that took a lot of extra work, but I think it really helped me, you know, further develop like a full-fledged cartoon, and help me like organize it better and plan it better. So I think this was a defining episode for me. And yeah, it's like I said, it's my favorite one so far, because I have great memories of working on it on the weekends and just pumping it out. Like I was excited to show this one off. I really was. I didn't think I could top a Ted Cruz one, but I think I did top it with this one. So this one came out May of 2018. So the last one came out November, and then this one took a couple weeks. There was a segment I watched about Jeb Bush. It seemed like a roast. So I'm like, what if he said those things like in a roast style? And obviously this is the start of Big Seltzer, because there were just people constantly asking me, when's the Seltzer episode? When's the Seltzer episode? And I had to throw it in, and it kind of worked out, because in the segment, Kyle was actually taking a drink of something. So I'm like, what if that drink was just seltzer? It has to be seltzer, right? It was like water or something. Who knows? Like, why not introduce like a drink that everyone keeps talking about? That's very subpar, in my opinion. And so this one, yeah, I again, I wanted to highlight multiple characters, and I think I was much more confident going into this one, because I had worked with it so long. And I think this is the first one where I really illustrate movement. It's not just like static, like they're just sitting there. It's just like, you know, there's a lot more movement. Obviously the characters are still talking to each other, but I think I illustrated that well. And of course we have the debut of Barbara Bush. So a couple things about Barbara Bush. One, I never thought I'd be drawing a cartoon version of Barbara freaking Bush. That was, I think, if you asked me when I was a kid, like, I think if I went in the past and I told my kid self, like, as I'm drawing my own comics of like Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck, in the future you will do an animation about Barbara Bush, and I might not know who Barbara Bush was at the time, even then, but yeah, I would just be like, well, you're you're crazy. But yeah, I think she was essential to this because Jeb and his mom had a very, very close relationship on the campaign trail, and it was illustrated then. And then Kyle obviously did a great impression of like what he would say to his mother, and you know, for his mother himself. So I'm like, I have to include the mom, so I have to do a mom, and I have to do like an I don't know how she was, like 70 80 year old woman, and illustrate that. And you know, obviously I went with the design that I have. Like, she would always wear a scarf, and she always wore black, and so I kind of want to I guess that was like a simplistic art choice, because you know, it kind of imitates like the clothes she wore, kind of similar to Hillary, where she'd always wear blue and, you know, everything. Unfortunately, this was while I was doing this, you know, Barbara Bush was still alive, but she actually passed when I was going to release the episode, or when I was wrapping up. And I'm like, oh crap, like that sucks. Like, say what you will about the Bushes, like, it's, you know, I don't wish death upon anybody, you know, especially a woman that I had, you know, no idea about. And I mean, she did, you know, the sons would do terrible things, you know, George Bush, but I don't wish death upon anybody. I wasn't happy that you know, she passed, because I didn't really know much about her, and I don't think I would really think about it if I hadn't have done like this episode, like in, you know, in the end times of her life. It didn't impact me, but I was just kind of like, just give me more perspective, I guess, because I didn't really know who she was, but I was, you know, drawing her at the time. So I'm like, damn, this, you know, this person that was alive that was drawing is, you know, is dead now. So I'm like, shit, it's kind of crazy. So I actually had to delay the episode. I wanted to delay the episode by like a week or so, or like I think like a week or two. I forget what it was, but you know, I wanted to, out of respect for her, because, you know, Barbara Bush doesn't look bad in this episode, but I didn't want to release a Barbara Bush episode when, you know, Barbara Bush was passing, and it was like all the range in the media and everything. So I wanted to give us some time to just chill, and I continued like other projects and stuff like that. But we had to illustrate Barbara Bush, and she was you know, obviously this is the impressions and everything. I like the movement that I gave Jeb. It's very like, you know, cartoony and very whiny. It's very like I thought it'd be cool if, like, you know, the light would appear like a roast, or like a comic, you know, doing some stand up and everything, and you know, just snap your fingers. And then actually I had to use the Trump hands. Last episode I did the Trump hands. I'm like, it kind of looks like a snap, it's like kind of thing. So I had to like illustrate that. So I thought that worked out as well. So I kind of wanted to figure this out, because like, what was I gonna have like audience members clapping? I kind of went against it, because I think, you know, he goes on about his record. He just pulverizes record. So I think it would be better I thought it would be better to illustrate it like to his face, you know, letting him know like, hey, you know, you supported this and you supported this, and it would just feel bad. He went kind of in. Kyle went kind of in on him, so I'm like, kind of wanted to feel bad. And like the things he's saying, like the mom just snickers and like, you know, no, I'm just kidding, son, I'm here for you. This part was kind of weird, because it kind of looked like, in the beginning, it kind of looked like Kyle and Barbara Bush were like looking into each other's eyes, and I was like, that's weird, man, that's weird. And so I kind of made it like Kyle was like, you know, do you have any words? Do you have anything you want to say, Jeb? And then, you know, the mom's interested, like, oh, what are you gonna say, son? What are you gonna say? So I stopped thinking about so much the Kyle Barba aspect of it, and more like the Jeb, what do you have to say now? And then like, obviously the guy is like, please clap, and that's like that will forever be his character. And then, you know, he says, please clap, and then and he kind of like moves his head around, and he's like, you know, please clap, like, give me a break, and like all that kind of stuff. So I wanted to illustrate that as well. And then here, a lot of people have said weird things about this. Like, they didn't go to pork. They are not porking. They just kind of, I take it as like they just went off screen. Like, you know, Jeb obviously is, you know, had enough of this. We'll leave him alone. I thought it was a cool effect with the mic. Just, you know, he tosses the mic, it just bounces off in his head. Just kind of the further emphasize, like, oh, we all feel bad for Jeb, but he just says some crazy things. And then here was the icing on the cake, because I wanted to, since it's a roast, to further embarrass him, because, you know, it's a roast. You know, you don't pull punches. So we have the 2 TVs now, so let's use them. So I'm like thinking, like, what if Jeb Bush is watching Jeb Bush? Like, that would be the final kicker. Like, you know, Jeb feels bad because he's like, oh, why did I say that stuff? You know. And then obviously the please clap. Like, Jeb is like, I'm not gonna let this get me down. But then he's like, oh, I'm saying this stuff. Oh my god, I can't take it. And there was like a weird effect that was playing with the eyes. Like, the eyes were like going from like in the center to like expanding, like, so they were like very derpy eyes. And I was just like playing around with that, like, I need to put this in here somehow because it's just like a weird thing. So I like, he's slowly just spacing out. He's like, oh, I can't believe I said this, and just freaking the hell out. And then he obviously claps when he hears himself like clap, say please clap and all that. And this moment, this, like, I wanted to emphasize the please clap. So I'm like, you know, we hear the please clap again, and then he's just like internally ingesting it. He's like, sees it in his eyes. This effect took a little bit. It was worth it. And then, you know, he's just kind of shrugging it off, and I wanted to further push the fact that everyone's trying to attack Bush, and I wanted to highlight the, like, what if the cards just started like appearing in front of me? He couldn't go anywhere. So you have the one card with the previous episode that I do, and then you have another one where the original segment, and he's just like trapped, and even the subscribe button appears. And then, like, I wanted him to say please, like, instead of like, you think he's gonna like please clap, but I wanted to say please subscribe. But there is no audio of Jeb Bush saying subscribe, clearly. So I kind of tried to do a voiceover of subscribe, and I adjusted the audio a little bit. It doesn't sound at all like him, but I just wanted to emphasize, like, you know, please subscribe. Yeah, but you get the point. You know, it wasn't the best attempt, but I thought it was fine. Overall, this episode was the beginning of the new studio. So I enjoyed drawing the new studio, you know, playing, you know, having a new playroom, as you will, like we introduced Big Seltzer. So we did a lot in this episode, and not a lot of movement, but it's just a lot of talking, a lot of you know, character reactions and things like that. But you know, after this one, I felt more confident. I think after this one, I felt like the most confident, like, in my animation skills. And 3, I felt pretty confident, but I feel like this one, like, you know, everything was smooth. Like, it looks good. The background emphasizes that, and, you know, I was pretty excited for going forward with this. And then jumping into the next one. This one, I don't really have any stories of, like, you know, working weekends and nonstop weekends. I worked on it, like, as I went, and I do remember working on Barbara Bush's model for like an entire weekend, like rigging it and animating it and all that stuff. I remember I tweeted about that. I'm like, this weekend I animated 80 or something 92-year-old Barbara Bush, former white First Lady Barbara Bush. What did you do this weekend? And people would be like, yo, I'm so sorry. I'm like, yeah, but I enjoyed it. I kind of enjoyed it. So yeah, this was a fun episode to do. You know, introduces the Jeb Bush character as well as the Ted Cruz character, which is like a staple in Secular Talk universe. This one actually has, I think this one has the least amount of views out of all the cartoons. This one has 0 dislikes, which I'm very surprised at. I guess that kind of shows you the power of Jeb Bush. Like, not even conservatives really like him. Because the next one we're going to talk about, the Tommy one, has a bunch of dislikes, and I think that's mostly attributed to like Tommy fans and stuff. So, this one I wanted to highlight another personality, and at the time, Tommy Lahren was, let me see when this one released. So the last one released in May 2018, I think it was, and then this one released October of that year. So the Jeb Bush one was May, this one was October. On Halloween, actually. And I kind of played it up like, this Halloween, Kyle confronts the Snowflake Queen. So yeah, I wanted to highlight another, prominent commentator. And, at the time, Tommy was, in the news a lot. So I'm like, let me do Tommy. And what is Tommy's, like, MA? Like, what is her thing? Constantly calling people snowflakes, constantly, regardless of the hypocrisy that she spews, like which is here about abortion and how she flip-flops. And I kind of wanted to do like a Frozen thing with Tommy, like Frozen and like the queen of the snowflakes, essentially like Elsa and Frozen, but like for snowflakes. I wanted to have command of snowflakes. So I wanted to like slowly get the point across, like snowflakes are coming out of nowhere. And then they're slowly like what? They're like coming to life. They're like alive. So that's kind of what I wanted to illustrate. This episode did get wordy. Actually, I'll go into that with the Glenn Beck stuff. But these parts, like, we would just hear Tommy's point, and we're using the TVs. We can use the environments now. So I like this joke a lot. I don't like to pat myself on the back, but I like this joke a lot. She, that's an awesome flip flop on her part, and those are pretty awesome flip flops. Like, I would buy those flip flops. I would I would buy those. I would try to buy those. So he mentions like, it's awesome flip flop in her, and then we get to the Glenn Glenn Beck part, and I had to listen to Glenn Beck. Oof. Like, this is like it was like a 5-minute rant or something, and I had to make it not as wordy because I wanted this. Obviously, Glenn Beck's going to be talking, but I wanted to illustrate like here that he's Kyle's discovering like there's something up with these snowflakes. Like, where are these snowflakes coming from? Like, where's it coming from? And why are they falling? And then suddenly realize they're alive. They're trying to attack me. So as the audio goes on, like, he discovers like these things are trying to attack me and all that crap. And he throws a flip flop at him. Then goes back. I had to make sure that the Glenn Beck clip was long enough that I can do like some funny animation with it. So I had to make sure that it wasn't too long, because he went like a 5-10 minute rant. So I had to cut it up perfectly to fit, like, for it to end, and then for to get the point across, and then for it to be long enough to do something funny with it. And then Kyle would comment on it. And then, so basically this episode, like, the point of this episode is Kyle, in the segment, he defends Tommy Lahren from Glenn Beck, basically defends Tommy Lahren. And I'm thinking of like Peanuts or Snoopy, where like Lucy is constantly making fun of Charlie Brown, but she secretly loves him. And that dynamic of, she's a little obsessive, but she doesn't really make it known. And I thought to turn that around to like make Tommy like that character that like falls in love with Kyle because he defends her. And I'm like, that could be an interesting, arc for her, I guess. Like, Tommy's not one to really be defended much, I assume. And I think it'd be funny if, Tommy hears that Kyle's defending her from Glenn Beck, and then like she just like falls in love with him. So this is the payoff. So I was playing again. This episode was getting very wordy. It was almost like a very long segment, and then stuff would happen. But I didn't want to make it too long. I wanted to cut back because lip syncing is annoying. so I wanted to cut back on it. And I think I got my point across, and it was just long enough to what I wanted it to be. So then obviously here's the review. Like obviously up to the point as you know you watching, like you realize that there's something up with these snowflakes, and then he doesn't notice it, but like you see a bunch of these snowflakes coming down, and like oh shit, like what's going on here? And I kind of like this little piece where he's like throwing up in his mouth. He's like, it's actually 1-to-1 on the audio, so I'm like, I need to make the cartoon version like hold it back as well. So I like that little piece of animation. It's very subtle, but it's very cool looking. So yeah, here's pretty much the big reveal. These snowflakes are sentient. They are with words. They can speak. And you know, obviously, what are they gonna say? You're a snowflake, you know, because they're Tommy Lauren's minions, I guess you could say. And then the big reveal. This took a lot of planning. This model, not only did I have to do Tommy, and it took me a while to kind of get the look of Tommy right, because she's like a blonde chick with, you know, makeup, and she wears a lot of blue. Like I Googled her, and like she always would wear like these blue from top to bottom. So I'm like, okay. And I didn't want to put a dress on her, because if I put a dress on her, like, you know, Kyle's looking up, he'd be like looking up her skirt. So I was like thinking about that. I was like, yeah, so let me give her pants. And she doesn't really wear a skirt. Like she would wear like a blue outfit like this. So I thought it was perfect, like to do this. And then the hair, like obviously I had to make each hair strand, like, you know, it's kind of like dandruff, I guess. Like it's just like from her hair, she's just like spewing all these snowflakes because she's a snowflake queen. And then she hears Kyle defending her, and she's like, something up with this guy. I kind of dig it. And you know, she calls off the minions. Lets Kyle breathe, and then she's like, I like this guy. And she's just like, yeah, she just falls in love with him because, you know, he defended her. She doesn't get that a lot. And this part came to me, like while I was doing it. I don't think I did storyboard this part, the safe space. So this was kind of, you know, Me Too is a big thing, and I didn't want to make it like she's assaulting him. I didn't want to portray that, but she would like try to lunge at him, give him a hug, you know, Lucify him. Like, you know, Lucy would always try to give Charlie Brown a hug, or Helga from Hey Arnold would, you know, always love to hug Arnold or whatever. But she can't. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, she can't do it because her safe space is on. She always talks about safe spaces. So what if a safe space is just like a barrier? It's like a barrier from like hearing things that you don't want to hear. And let me just portray that like a shield. Like it's just like a thing you can turn off and on. Like, you know, people say like, oh, people have to go to safe spaces if they you know, they're not treated right or whatever. And I thought it was perfect to portray like a shield, something you can turn off and on. And then, you know, she can't do it because the safe space is on, but once she turns it off, safe space goes away. I thought it was like, that's a great touch. Like, again, I don't want to pat myself on the back, but I really like that portion of it. That it's not a character trait, but it's just it works with what it is. Like, it's, you know, portraying a safe space, I guess, the best way I could have in an animated form. So I'm really happy with it, Kim. I actually would watch that scene, like just that bubble and that sound effect, like pop yourself in your safe space. Like I would watch that multiple times because I was like, yeah, I want to get this right. So then she jumps on him, you know, to do nothing but give her a hug. And I like this little effect with the table slamming after she hugs him. The papers are jumping up. I thought it was a good effect. I like how it flows. It looks good. It looks authentic. So you know, doing animation and making it look like it would happen in real life. Like, you know, bump your head, like the stuff would just jump up and the papers would flow and whatever. It's very satisfying to see that stuff. Here it says, "How dare you?" Originally, I was gonna have Kyle say, "Me too, me too." Like I didn't want him to illustrate that like he's being assaulted. Like I guess people would think it would be funny, but I don't know. For me, it was a little too far, I think. So there was a clip that Leon actually sent me, the guy who does Kyle out of context. Like I talk to him sometimes, and he had this clip of Kyle saying, "How dare you? How dare you?" I forget what the context was. We see this out of context, obviously. So I'm like, yeah, what if he just screams, "How dare you? How dare you?" And then like you can interpret it however you want. Like, you know, the fact that she jumped him, the fact that she like invaded his personal space or whatever. And then you just see her floating on the snowflakes, and then calls him a snowflake because like he's like running away, and like maybe he's a little intimidated by a very aggressive woman, kind of thing. So yeah, I think this episode was I wanted to portray Tommy in a certain light, in a certain animated light. You know, obviously with Jeb Bush and Ted Cruz, they have their own like character traits. I think I did a great thing with Tommy's character in animated form. So I'm really happy with how this one came out. Again, it was a lot of talking. There wasn't too much movement, but I think it flows better than the other ones. I think I took the criticism of the first two to heart, where it's sometimes the characters are very stagnant. They're very static. They don't really move too much. I kind of wanted to, you know, take that to the next level. So I guess Tommy's hair in this episode would be the thing that pushed me, because that hair, the flowing hair with the snowflakes and everything, that pushed me, like getting every strand of hair to animate and you know, getting her look together. I think that's what definitely pushed me in this episode. But yeah, I love the thumbnail for this one. I love like what I'm building with, like, you know, the fact that Tommy's like in love with Kyle, and I think I've portrayed that in 6 as well. Like she's still in love with him. There's a little cameo in the 6th episode you'll see tomorrow. I'm sure most of you guys have seen if you stuck around here, but yeah, not much else to say about this one. Yeah, I just love like that, like the sound effects and everything. I do this one. I played more with sound effects. Like I tried to add sound effects for everything, for like the snowflake wishing and everything. I didn't want to just go. I wanted to give it like sound, and like she's bopping her head with the safe space, and you know, playing more with audio and just having fun with like this shield sound effect that like the shield's coming down. I found that online as well. Like I think it gives more personality to like or more character to what's happening. But yeah, this is the Tommy episode, and I don't think we'll see the last of Tommy Laren in the Secular Talk animated universe. And I wish I knew how to make flip-flops, because I would make these flip-flops. I need these flip-flops in my life. So there's quite a story with this one. So this was the April Fool's episode. So originally it was like the day of April Fool's. I had seen a number of animators that I follow. They did an April Fool's episode. And obviously they're known for like their specific animations and everything. And they released an episode that was a joke. The thumbnail was of what it wasn't about, and obviously because of April Fools. So I saw this literally at like 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the morning. I got to work, and lucky for me, I didn't have too much work going on, so I had some free time. And I'm thinking to myself, should I do an April Fool's episode? Should I do one? And I thought to myself for a little bit. I'm like, yeah, do it. That'd be great. It'd be great if I could do it, but I have to finish it today. So I literally had to do an animation in like a matter of hours. Obviously, I had been promoting with you guys that I've been doing episode 6. It was going to be the Kyle and Politicon debate. I've been promoting it, like updating the fact on Twitter that I was working on it and stuff like that. So I'm like, I need to play on this. So I had to make a thumbnail. So this is this is actually be the thumbnail for tomorrow too. I thought it was good enough. I didn't really want to change it. I didn't want to do anything else to it. I thought it was good enough. So I had to create a fake thumbnail and portray it as like a Politicon episode. Whereas you guys know what the end result is. You guys helped me out a lot with this one actually, and I really like how it came out. So I had to promote it like it was the Politicon debate, but the thing is, I didn't have access to everything. I didn't have access to like every model or whatever. I didn't have access to Tommy, I don't think. Actually, I didn't have access to Hillary, but I had access to Ted Cruz and Jeb Bush. So I wanted to add like a quartet, like a best of their character arcs. So what does Ted Cruz do? Obviously the man. What does Jeb do? Please clap, obviously. What does Hillary do? Stronger together. So I didn't have access to the Hillary model unless I redid it. So what I literally did is I took a screenshot of her doing something in the YouTube video. I took a screenshot of it and I cut it out in Photoshop, and I literally had it like as a paper, like puppet, which is like, you know, instead of like a fully animated one, because I didn't have access to it. So I just had them say their best lines, and Jeb Bush is not even properly lip synced, but I was like, I need to rush this out. What can I do quickly? So I'm just gonna like, yeah, these three are just gonna like constantly just like harass the user with their nonsense. And then, you know, I was thinking, I have this picture of Seltzer. I'm like, yeah, let me just have it come out of nowhere for no reason. I was really being goofy with this one, but I wanted to play like, you know, what do the audience what is the audience expect from a secular talk cartoon? Like, you expect like nutty politicians and you know, Seltzer. And then they kept doing that, and then like I'm thinking to myself, like, what else? How do I end this? So I'm thinking to myself, what if I show Kyle's legs? Because it's like a joke in the community, like he has no legs. And I remember I posted an image of Kyle, of the character model for Kyle for the cartoon, and I showed the legs by accident, and people were like, "Yo, what are you doing? You're showing the legs. You're showing the legs." And I was like, "Damn, even the cartoon Kyle can't show his legs properly." I thought it was kind of funny. So I'm like, "Yeah, what if he just like hovers down on the on seltzer bottles, and I just show the legs in like epic fashion." And actually this music that I had to like remember. I'm like, I know it's like the dawn of time or something like that. And then so I wanted to like, you know, prop it up and like, oh, something epic's gonna happen. And it kind of is, because he's showing off the legs and he's just like smiling. He's like, yep, I have leg, bitches. Could have done more with it, obviously, but I didn't want to just sit on this. So I'm like, how do I get this guy out of here? I'm like, Tommy Lahren. She's in love with him. She tries to jump him because she's in love with him. You know, that character trope. Yeah. And then we did the Charlie Brown voice. It just worked perfectly. It worked out pretty well. I was pretty happy with it. And then obviously I had to tell them, like, hey, guess what? Episode 6 is coming soon. This is not episode 6. This is, I guess you can call it 5.5. So, yeah. Took me a few hours to do this, but not as long, but because it was very simple. But I'm kind of glad I did an April Fool's episode, because I would actually have people in the comments be like, oh shit, you got me. I thought it was, because I think the title of the episode was Kyle debates Ann Coulter at Politicon 2018, and I guess people thought that this was actually the episode, and then people were like, oh, you actually got me. And I'm like nowadays it's like hard to get you an April Fool's, because if it's on April Fool's Day, you're, at least my head automatically goes to like, everything is false, everything's not true. But I guess I had the luxury of not uploading that much. And you know, when I upload it, it means something. I guess I've done that for 5 episodes, where like, if you know, I'm showing the episode in it's gonna be the episode. You know, I don't think people thought for seconds like, oh shit, it's on April 5th, must be coincidence, because it's like animations take a long time and all that yada yada. So I was surprised that like people were got, because I'm like, it's April Fool's, your brain should all make it turn to like, this is a joke. But I guess not. I guess some people are like, oh, this is the episode, I can't wait. And then yeah, turns out I did a funny April Fool's joke, and I'm, you know, who's to say I won't do one again? But I can't do the same thing. I can't promote it as like the next episode is something else. I'd have to do something different, because some people might be get, but I don't like to do the same joke twice. So, but yeah, those are all the Secular Talk episodes, guys. These are all the episode titles. I love looking at this, like like it just shows like my progression from like the beginning to the end, because at the beginning I'm like, what do I animate? What do I do? Like, I want to animate, but I don't know what to do. And then I just did it, and like this just shows like my like looking at these titles, I see like growth. I see like a lot of growth. And they might just look like titles, but like I know in the moment where I was like during each of these episodes during production, and it's like, it's crazy where we've come, and we've only done 5.5 episodes really. Like, I think I'll do this again when I do another 5 in the year 3000, when I have another 5 episodes done. I think I'll do another of these and reflect on the past 5 for you guys. And I think that'd be a cool thing to see where we're at in another 5 episodes. This is my story. This was how Secular Talk was made, and I hope you guys stick around for more. It's gonna be a good future. We only got 5 down. Hopefully here's to another 5 more and beyond. But that is my story.